the Indiana Jones game is allegedly releasing in 2024, according to new information and sources close to the project. And I gotta say, I'm kind of surprised by this, but I'm also sort of concerned when I look at the entire timeline of the game. So I want to look at all we know and what they said just 2 to 3 years ago, but also I want to look at what we're hearing now. We have an insider talking about the different types of perspective that the game might be in, both first person and third person, but we also have stuff from Insider Gaming. So I want to break the video into 2 parts. First, I want to just talk about what we know. Comments about how the game was in very early development not too long ago, the way the gameplay will be mixed game types, and what Insider Gaming and Tom Henderson are now reporting. But second, I want to talk about why I'm worried, and this game, like Hellblade 2, is just another one that I'm sort of feeling genuine concern for the launch timing after everything that we've heard, especially after one of my favorite games of 2023 launched in the way that was just so obviously that the game was not ready, and that game was Jedi Survivor. So I'm looking forward to Hellblade 2. I think Indiana Jones would make a great game, and I think MachineGames could do a good job with it, but I'm really, really concerned about this timeline. So the first thing I want to do is just establish the timeline, and we have an article from June of 2021. Okay, this is not that long ago, and this is from Games Radar, and Indiana Jones is in very, very early stages according to Bethesda. So if it launches in 2024, that's like barely 3 years of development, because this is in the middle of June. And if you look at the way that this is talked about, you can see down here on June 16th, GameSpot held its special Play for All event, which included appearances and interviews from developers around the industry. Now, one of the guests was Bethesda's Senior Vice President of Global Marketing and Communications, Pete Hines. He's no longer there. He retired. And he revealed that the new Indiana Jones game from MachineGames is in very, very, very early stages of development. That's like really stressing how early this is, just 3 years ago. But then he says this. He says they're working on the Indiana Jones games, which we just talked about earlier this year. Obviously, we literally just announced that deal, so you can make your own guesses about how far along that is. Now, again, this is in the middle of 2021. So let's just say Indiana Jones comes out in the middle of 2024. That's only 3 years. That's a very, very small development window. And MachineGames has somewhere around 150 employees. So this is another company under 200 employees. I talked a lot about Ninja Theory and Hellblade and their timeline. I have similar concerns there about they were not in full production in the middle of 2021, and here we are 3 years later, and Hellblade 2 is apparently coming. Now, Hellblade 2 is, in my estimation, probably going to be a slightly smaller game. The first game clocked about 8 hours to complete it, 10 if you were going for pretty completionist, and the second game, I'm assuming, is going to be a little bit bigger, but a 10 to 15 hour game. You know, maybe I could see a smaller team being able to crank that out in 3 years. But a game like Indiana Jones, maybe I shouldn't be assuming this, but I was kind of assuming this would be a bigger title, a bigger release, and the company that's working on it has a history with pretty good releases with Wolfenstein. Now, that's one of the pieces of this. I want to look at the game as far as if it'll be third person or first person, because I was hearing rumors during one of my streams that, oh, it's going to be a platformer. And I thought, okay, that's kind of a unique take. I think people saw Indiana Jones and they saw the trailer and they thought it would be more in the vein of like an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider, because clearly both Tomb Raider and Uncharted are inspired by some of the tropes and the things from the Indiana Jones movies. So I think it stood to reason to think that, oh, we're going to be getting a third-person game, because up to now it's only been described as an action-adventure game. But when somebody said, oh, it's going to be a platformer, I thought, oh, you know, maybe a really, really creative, high graphics, lush game that's like a Metroidvania. You know, the graphics are really good in Ori, you know, up that a little bit. But I don't think that's what this game is going to be, and we have a source claiming what the game is going to look like, and it seems to sort of corroborate with something that Todd Howard told Lex Friedman in an interview. Now, I've got this coming from WCCF Tech, and I'm bumping the text up here for you, and it says here, according to Special Nick's source, it will be a combination of both first person and third person, albeit fixed rather than switchable like a Bethesda game. So you're not going to be able to like bounce back and forth. There's been a lot of talk, this is him speaking here, about whether Indiana Jones would be first person or third person. I may have gotten info on about the camera angle. Now, I don't know if it's been finalized or not. because the game, I think, is still quite a bit away. Now, keep in mind, he is saying this, all right? He's saying this in June of 2023. So this is last year, in the middle of the year, only 2 years after Pete Hines said it was very, very, very early in development. Special Nick is saying the game is still quite a bit away. That doesn't sound like a game that's 1 year away. That sounds like a game that's still pretty deep in the throes of development. So even according to his sources and his information, this game's not right around the corner. Now, there was a fiscal report that looked like they wanted this game to come out in fiscal year 22. So it's very possible they're repurposing something that was maybe going to be a Wolfenstein game, and maybe they're repurposing some of those assets, levels, characters, enemies. I don't know. Maybe they were able to, bake some of that into this and get a jump start. I don't know why you would be trying to launch a game announced early 2021 and you want to have it release in fiscal year 2022. That turnaround time is crazy to me from everything we know about development. But let's read on here about what the game is going to be like. Okay, so from what he's been told, it's going to be both first person and third person. Now, not like Starfield where you get to pick, but they'll be specific, as far as I'm aware. There'll be specific sections. Some will be in third person and some will be in first person. Now, again, as I said, this seems to corroborate the famous sort of Lex Friedman, Todd Howard interview, and you can see here further down in this article, they quote Todd, "I will just say it's a mashup. It's unique. It isn't one thing intentionally, so it does a lot of different things that myself and the folks at MachineGames have wanted to do in a game, so it's a unique thing." Now, I pair that with Pete Hines' comments that it's very, very early in development, and then Special Nick says it's still quite a bit away, and that's barely a year ago. That's 6 months ago that he said that. And then you got him and Todd Howard sort of corroborating the fact that we're going to have two different sort of perspectives that they utilize, and Todd Howard saying it's going to be really unique. Well, that sounds like something that might take some time. That sounds like you're being ambitious. And I'm going to circle back to this point when I talk about why I'm worried, because I'm going to reference another studio that pivoted away from what they were known and did something that was pretty ambitious, and they didn't do it in 2 to 3 years. It took quite a bit longer, so I'm going to refer back to this. But now we need to look, to complete the timeline here, now we need to look at what Insider Gaming is saying. So what's our boy Tom Henderson having to say? So Indiana Jones game is releasing in 2024, sources say. Now, this hit in the midst of me being kind of critical of people saying, oh, Indiana Jones is coming this year, because they did say that Indiana Jones will be at the Developer Direct that Xbox is kicking the year off with. And last year's Developer Direct was games that were all coming that year. And so people were like, oh, does that mean Indiana Jones is coming? And I said, let Xbox announce it. Don't start telling everybody that Indiana Jones is coming. Well, as I'm saying that, Tom Henderson breaks this story on Twitter, and he actually had this to say. So before we look at the article, he links to the article here. He's quote tweeting the article. He says, everyone was anticipating that the direct announcement was going to be, for games releasing in 2024. That didn't happen. But the word behind the scenes is that Indy is a 2024 release. Could be announced during the show. Now he's shortening Indiana Jones to Indy. He's not saying like an indie game is going to be that. So this could be a surprise announcement at the Developer Direct, okay, that, hey, Indiana Jones is coming this year. Like, that'd be a huge surprise, because I don't think anybody expects a game to be announced and then released 3 years later. That almost never happens with larger games or larger IPs. Maybe this is going to be a smaller game. Maybe they're going to release these episodically or something, so this will be like a $40 or $50 game. I'm not sure, but a 3-year turnaround time just seems crazy. So what's Insider Gaming have to say? The new Indiana Jones game by ZeniMax Media will be released in 2024. Sources close to the game tell Insider Gaming. ZeniMax Media's Indiana Jones was first teased in January 2021, but was believed to still be years away from an official release. The developers, MachineGames, have previously developed Wolfenstein: The New Order and Wolfenstein 2: New Colossus. Documents released as part of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard King revealed that Bethesda once hoped to have the Indiana Jones game released by the end of fiscal year 2022, but due to consequences of the sickie, that didn't happen. So here's the thing. That's the full Developer Direct announcement. We don't need to go look at that. So we've got to consider the fact that they had complications with the development pipeline just like everybody else did because of what happened. So what that means is then you hear Pete Hines say in the middle of 2021, they're still very, very, very early in development. Well, that makes sense because their plans probably got completely disrupted just like everybody else's. So again, that adds fuel to the problem here. It's like, it's 3 years. That doesn't seem like a ton of time. All right. Now, more from the article. Whether or not MachineGames and Xbox can keep to the 2024 release date remains to be seen. But I, for one, am looking forward to what they show off of the game on January the 18th. The Developer Direct will feature 10 minutes of game and developer insights, as well as information about the game's story and the first official gameplay trailer. So we will get to see gameplay. Like, I hope it's like actual gameplay, because sometimes gameplay trailers are, you know, in-engine or simulated or whatever. I'm also interested if they're going to make it clear that the game is going to feature like both first person and third person. Like, are they actually going to let us see that in the trailer? Are they going to make sure that like that's apparent in the trailer? I'll be curious about that. So, second part of the video here, very quickly here at the end. Why am I worried? Well, I've said quite a bit to emphasize why I'm worried. It's not a huge shift for MachineGames to go from like first person to third person, but an Indiana Jones game in third person is going to feature, I would think, new mechanics, probably things with his whip, puzzle solving, things like that, especially if it's in the same vein as like an Uncharted or a Tomb Raider. Now, another company shifted away from what they were known for and took a big risk. Guerrilla Games shifted from doing a shooter to doing Horizon Zero Dawn. And our research into this, they worked on Horizon Zero Dawn for 7 years, and they are a larger studio. They're not 150 strong, they're like 400 strong now, okay? Now again, granted, first and third person could be closer to what the expertise of MachineGames is. And again, maybe they had something tentatively built for Wolfenstein that they thought would just work really well for an Indiana Jones, because you've got, you know, some of the World War era stuff going on. Who knows exactly how that will play out. But 3 years just feels incredibly short to launch a brand new IP, one they've never built before, one that Todd Howard seems to indicate is going to be unique, potentially meaning it's kind of ambitious, it's new, it's not something that they have done before. Now, when somebody was saying it was a platformer, I was like, okay, short dev window, it's a platformer, a decent-sized team could bring that to market quite a bit faster. But an action-adventure game blending first-person and third-person gameplay, that just doesn't sound like a small, quick turnaround project. This feels like everything that I've been worried about with Xbox. I feel like Xbox speaks out of turn. They're more focused on making announcements and hitting a delivery cadence than hitting that quality. They did that in 2022 going into 2023. They said, oh, here's all the games coming in the next 12 months. More than half the games didn't make it. Then I feel they're forcing games to launch when they're not ready. Forza Motorsport is proof of this. That game was not ready. It's missing features. It's got a terrible score on Xbox. I know people claim that scores on Steam don't matter because I guess they think there's a bias against Xbox on Steam, which doesn't make sense as to why Hi-Fi Rush has an incredible score on Steam. But Forza Motorsport has like a 50% on the Xbox store. Go right now and Google it yourself. Forza Motorsport, Xbox store, click on reviews. It's got a 2.6, and people are complaining in the very first couple of reviews I read. It's like missing features, stuff isn't here. They took stuff out that was supposed to be here. The game clearly wasn't ready, and the concern would be, just like the Xbox Developer Direct at the beginning of 2023 when I said they don't have a release date for Forza Motorsport, that doesn't make any sense. It was supposed to be here in the first half of the year. So not only did Forza Motorsport not land in the first half of 2023 like it was promised, it landed later with less features and a lot of lack of stuff that they promised. The graphical fidelity was nowhere near what they had originally promoted. And now we have Hellblade 2 and we have Indiana Jones giving me similar vibes and concerns. Just really small development windows, 3 years. It's really hard for me to accept that you can build a good game in that amount of time. From everything we've heard, every single time we get sort of a tell-all from Bloomberg about, oh, well, they built Anthem in 15 months or 18 months, right? That's a year and a half. And these really, really shrunken development cycles and crunch culture, and it always leads to a really, really bad game. And listen, I really, really hope that I'm wrong, because these are two games that I'm heavily interested in. Everybody always watches a video like this and says, oh, you're hating. I'm not hating. I'm saying let the games cook. I think it's ridiculous to be like, oh, well, yeah, they built the game in 3 years. Surely it's going to be good. Not from anything we know about game development. No, everything we know about game development is 5 years minimum for a good dev cycle, maybe 4. We're talking about 3, maybe even less than 3. I don't know. I really, really hope that the timeline is one that maybe they were just overstating how early it was. Maybe they were just trying to play it down so it could be a surprise release or something like that. And same thing with Hellblade 2. Maybe they were just really able to hit a good cadence. Maybe smaller teams are finding ways to be more efficient than the larger teams, and that brings the projects to market quicker. But that's just what I think. I want to know what you think. Leave a comment below. If you pick the member tier on my channel that's at $6, it's called Member. You can come into my writer's room. We plan these uploads and these shows. It's something you can do to support the channel, but you do get into extra content. If you don't want to do that, that's totally fine. Hit subscribe and the bell button, and I'll see you in the next video.